Morning, everyone. Welcome to Preview 2019. Thanks for being here. We're excited about what's happening in Las Vegas, what's going to happen in Las Vegas. We're going to talk about that a little bit with a great panel here in just a minute. Before I do that, I just want to ask for one more round of applause for the incomparable Jeremy Aguero. Jeremy wanted 45 minutes to get his 107 slides in today, but we were afraid he was going to spontaneously combust if we gave him that much time. So we cut him back a little bit, and so he got through all that. And then Mary Beth asked that I let you down a little bit slowly, and so you didn't have to go cold turkey from 100 slides with numbers. I'm going to show you just a couple so that you can come down off that high just a little bit. These are the 2018 results for tourism and hospitality in Las Vegas. These numbers are very similar to what they were in 2017 and 2016. And really, we have come close to reaching capacity in our current market. The last 4 years, the number of visitors in Las Vegas has started with a 42. We think that will be the case again in 2019. We are reaching really what becomes full occupancy. The largest occupancy year we have had in our history was 2007. It was 90.4%. We have been in that 88% range for the past 4 years as well. We have a few less hotel rooms than we had. Our job at the LVCVA is to put heads in beds. Somebody forgot to tell us that we're not supposed to reduce the number of beds that we have. And when we blew up the Riviera for our expansion, we knocked about 1,700 rooms out of the market. So we've dropped from about 150,500 down to 148,800. And that number has held pretty steady over the last number of years. The number of convention attendees was the second highest in our history. And the only reason it was second and not first is because the big Con Expo show that rotates through the market every 3 years was here in 2017, which is a 6.6 million attendee number. And when they roll back in 2020, we fully expect to set a new record. Our RevPAR in 2018 at $113.50 was a record, and we see that continuing to grow. So in order to move forward in the market, we really have two choices. One is to look for opportunities to fill some of the softer points throughout the year, and that's one of the reasons we're going to talk about events here today. The other is to grow. So the city's decided to do both, and we are growing really exceptionally well at this point. We are building 3.7 million new square feet of convention and meeting space. To put that in perspective, there are only 5 cities in the United States that have 3.7 million square feet of meeting space. So we are growing at a rate that is equivalent to the largest cities in the United States for meetings. We have 11.5 million square feet of meeting space here in Las Vegas now. We'll be in the 15 million square foot range when this next wave of development is complete. We're also adding hotel rooms around the city. World-class stadium, and all told, that is $15 or $16 billion in investment. We get used to talking about billion-dollar projects in Southern Nevada, but that is a remarkable number, and it is going to take Las Vegas really into the next step and into the next generation of what this city is going to be all about. Here are just some of those projects. You can see the hotel projects from Circa and Resorts World and the Drew. You can see meeting space at the Convention Center expansion, what Wynn is doing, what Caesars is doing, and then 2 of the most spectacular venues, not only here, but anywhere in the world, that are going up, the MSG Sphere and, of course, the Las Vegas Raiders Stadium. So with that, I want to invite and introduce our panelists today. I'm very pleased to be able to welcome to the stage three real leaders in the event industry, not only here in Las Vegas, but around the country and around the globe. First, I'd like to welcome Kurt Melien from Live Nation, the world's largest live entertainment company, and he lives here in Las Vegas. So please help me in welcoming Kurt. Welcome. Thank you. Next, I'd like to welcome Kevin Camper. He's the Senior Vice President of Sales and Marketing for the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Thanks, Kevin. And certainly last but not least, Marc Badain, who is the president of the soon-to-be Las Vegas Raiders. Welcome, gentlemen. Thanks for joining us today. I'll just start by, I'll start with you, Kurt. Sure. Live Nation has a big footprint in Las Vegas, certainly has a big footprint across the country and around the globe. Could you just tell us a little bit about who Live Nation is, what you do, what drives what you do, and how that fits in here in Las Vegas?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the largest global promoter of concerts in the world, but more importantly, we've got a significant footprint here in Vegas. My group does about 75 or 80% of the shows on the Strip. That's a combination of arena content. We're the largest promoter of arenas in really the three major arenas in town owned by MGM, but we do shows occasionally here at Thomas & Mack and also at the Orleans. And then we've got a significant residency business. So we sort of own and sort of run the resident content across the city. And together that business is doing just about 3 million tickets a year now, which is the majority of the music that's here in town.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
And Kevin, thanks for being here as well.
Thank you.
The Speedway, I think, opened in its current form in 1996. There's been Speedways there for quite a while, but in its current form opened, I think, in 96. Can you tell us a little more about what happens at the Speedway, what the business model looks like for you?
Absolutely. Our company, Speedway Motorsports, which owns and operates 8 speedways across the country, bought this facility in 1999. We had one NASCAR Monster Energy Cup race for about 18 years, and last year we added the second one. But our typical year looks like about 1,450 event days throughout the year. So you think about that, we probably have 6 events going on at the track today. So, and they make up of 2 NASCAR events annually, 2 National Hot Rod Association events, which are drag racing events, and then probably, if not the top 1 music festival in North America, Kurt would probably validate that, the top 3 with the Electric Daisy Carnival in the middle of May. And various other events, whether it be a dog show, a Red Bull Air race, you name it, we're very diverse. We like to look at our facilities, the most diverse motorsports facility in North America and possibly even the world.
Great. Marc, welcome.
Thanks, Steve.
So let's get right to it. When are we going to get a Super Bowl?
I'm just jumping right in, huh?
No, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I know you've got an answer.
No, I'd be happy to answer. Yeah. The Super Bowl process has changed over the years, how the NFL does it. The next one that's up for bid will be in January of 2025. And as you know, we'll be very active in going after that bid. We've had conversations with the NFL, and when that process starts, we'll be very aggressive in going after it.
So you and I have talked a couple of times about this. It has not even been 3 years since we first met and since Las Vegas first met the Raiders. I think that was in April of 2016. A lot has happened in that period of time. I don't know if that's a record for moving forward in one of these situations, but can you talk about that just a little bit?
Sure. It's pretty remarkable, and we're obviously living through it. So at some point, maybe we'll look back on it. And we're trying to take as much video footage as we can to chronicle the journey for the organization as well as the community and the stadium project. But I say this often. I don't think this community realized what they pulled off. The speed at which they put together the most aggressive package and were able to convince us, and then we were able collectively to convince the league that this was the right market and the right time for that opportunity. I just don't see how it'll ever get replicated. We were talking backstage, our first meeting of the committee was April 26th. So we're not even 33 months from the first real public discussion of putting the stadium project together to having about $650 million already into the investment in the stadium and 95 employees in town and breaking ground on a practice facility. Just that pace is indicative, I think, of what this market and this community is capable of, and we're pretty fortunate to be a part of it.
Yeah, great. You know, one of the things I'd like to accomplish in our conversation today is giving the audience and the community an understanding of how events come together, how, you know, what all the participants that it takes in order to pull an event off, what drives their thinking, what makes a good event for them. And so I'm going to ask kind of each of you a little bit of, because you all have a different perspective on this, and there are a couple other potential perspectives that are not represented necessarily in the conversation that you folks deal with all the time, so feel free to include their perspectives as well. But Kevin, I'll start with you. You 1,450 events a year. How many of those are really targeted at a local audience, and how many are for a much bigger tourism audience?
There's probably about 100 of those events that are targeted predominantly for local, which would be grassroots type racing week in and week out, which would be local community events. And our NASCAR events typically have had about a 30% local attendance. We've seen a shift in our fall event where it's about 40 to 45% local attendance. And then our two drag races probably make up about 65% local attendance. So we do skew higher at the drag racing events in the local community. Price point seems to play into that a little bit. It's a little more affordable than the NASCAR ticket, and that seems to be what we hear. And drag racing is really a West Coast product. That's where it was born, and seems to be super popular in our community, from whether it be in Nevada, California, or Utah. So
you put on some of the biggest events in the destination. You know, the NASCAR weekends, Electric Daisy, and I'm sure some others. Talk a little bit about attendance for those events and what it means to the city.
Yeah, so we run about 1.4 million of consumers through our facility annually. And so you can look at the Electric Daisy Carnival, is a little over 400,000 people in one weekend. So the NASCAR weekends typically are anywhere from 100 to 150,000 spectators over a 3-day period. And then we have consumers coming from the Strip each and every day to enjoy the driving experiences we have. We have 3 different driving experiences: a NASCAR experience and 2 exotic car experiences, which are just fabulous to come and do. So,
and from a business model standpoint, is attendance and ticket sales, concessions, really what drives your revenue model, or are there other things that come into play there that are kind of equally significant?
Well, it's probably a mix. We have a really strong TV partnership on the NASCAR side with Fox and NBC, which makes up a large part of the revenue streams for that event, for those events. The rest of it is consumer driven. So our goal is to drive as many people into the destination, to drive room nights, food and beverage, entertainment. I mean, we're very blessed to be in the entertainment capital of the world, where we have something that we can market. And if you look at, and I oversee the revenue and the marketing piece, I like to tell people I'm a professional beggar about 80% of the time, and then the other 20% I get to talk about the destination, which is fun. But our marketing campaigns reside with Las Vegas leading. It's not Las Vegas Motor Speedway, it's Las Vegas leading. So we entice people to come to the destination, and oh, by the way, you can see an event at the Speedway, whether it be a NASCAR race, an NHRA race, or whatever it may be, a music festival.
Yeah. Kurt, you have artists really appearing across a wide spectrum of venues. Really, Live Nation is more than just the artists and the concerts. Ticketmaster is a big part of Live Nation, and I'm sure important to your business model as well. So I guess there's a couple of questions in there. One is, as you look at where artists perform and how to choose venues, how does that work? And then is the Ticketmaster portion of your business a big driver in the decision making, or is it just helping on the revenue and profit lines?
Yeah, no, I think the first question is sort of is the bigger one, the one I want to address. I think the majority of the time with is sort of how do people pick venues and how do people pick cities? People being artists, we're really, really lucky to have great infrastructure here. I mean, that's really what it comes down to is this city competes against really just about every city in the country and world when it comes to having large capacity theaters or new buildings, right? And that's what it comes down to for artists. They want to play sort of new buildings, sexy buildings where other great artists have played. So, we've been really, really lucky over the last, let's call it, 5 years or so, where we've had T-Mobile. We've had the T-Mobile development, we've had the Park MGM development, there'll be some renovations, some other theaters coming up in the next 6 months. A lot of that capital is driven, frankly, by the casino business, and of course, Raider Stadium. So, we're very, very fortunate when we think about how we compete with other cities in the world, is we've got to have that infrastructure, that sort of new or refurbished or well-maintained infrastructure to attract artists, because that's how they think. Artists think about venues first, and then they start to think about other things after that. To address Ticketmaster, Ticketmaster is our ticketing platform. It's obviously a big business for us, but it's an independent business. It's run as a ticketing software, and it's something I don't think about a ton. How I focus my time is thinking about how to attract artists and events to the city. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Marc, this is your first venture into operating a venue. Give us a little what you've learned over the first year or two.
We've had a number of discussions with a lot of the partners and a lot of the major players in the industry, both concert promoters, event operators. We'll have an event partner or an operating partner at the building. So in addition to running our games, we've been involved in some other events and some other promotions, but not to the scale that we're walking into here. And over the past year, we've met with dozens of large-scale events that want to come here. Some that are already here, some that the venue didn't exist here, so now they're able to come here. So you're talking about college football, non-conference games, conference championship games, other large sporting events, concert promoters, large-scale corporate events, but you also want to make sure that it's augmenting what's already being done here. We don't just want to take the business from somewhere else. So a lot of the conversations we're having are people that brought a 15 to 20,000 person event here and now can bring the rest of their company with them and do a 40,000 person event or a 50,000 person keynote tentpole event at the stadium and use the stadium for a day. So those are encouraging conversations. In terms of the events, it's a small world that you live in, but also a pretty large world, and everybody knows each other. Like any industry, there's a lot of people that know each other. It's pretty tight-knit, and we know some of them over the years. And I think everyone's just excited about having this venue in this locale, because it really is the final missing piece to all the infrastructure that's here, everything that you're able to accomplish here. And now you have this large-scale venue that we hope has 1,400 events. I don't know if we pull off 1,400 events, but we'd love to replicate that type of model and have that type of activity. So it's busy 365 days a year. That was the goal of the committee. That was the goal of the reason to build it for this community, and the response has been outstanding.
And is the balance of the events outside of football a major part of your business plan? Is important?
It's becoming more and more important as we've done the research and investigated. Obviously, you make the fixed cost investment in the building, and then you have the variable cost of running it. Every single event should be something that helps drive revenue for the building as well as drive some tourist traffic. Right? Our 10 games a year right now are looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of 2/3, 1/3 local versus non-local, which I think is great for the community. And when you start looking at the other events, most of that is going to be tourist driven. So that's great for the community as well, and you want to make sure that you maximize that. But the events are all over the place. We have a board at the office of all the people that we've talked to, and you just wouldn't believe the variation of people that we talk to who want to bring some events here. And some are real and some are probably not real. And you vet those, and we're building out that calendar and already have a few things that are in the pipeline.
So I guess maybe for all of you a little bit, when you, and I assume Live Nation, it kind of drives the conversation for a new event.
On the music side, yeah.
Yeah, you come up with the idea for an event, pick an artist, and then decide where you would like that artist to be. Is that really how that works?
Yeah, I mean, we as a city are competing with other major cities with great stadiums. The stadium business is a relatively limited one. I think that's been well documented at this point. There aren't that many artists in the world that can sell the kind of tickets that they need to sell to go into a stadium. So we're competing with mostly the West Coast. I mean, I think artists will typically take a look at where they want to play, how many shows are going to play in a given year, and it might be 5, maybe 10. So, we're typically competing with Phoenix and LA and Seattle. And, I think we've talked about this, Mark, and I mean, we're well positioned to compete. We've got lots of good things happening in Vegas. Jeremy, obviously, spent some time going through that. I mean, there's a lot of positive things happening here for all sorts of reasons that we believe that we're going to be a really good spot to do great shows there. Yeah.
Kevin?
Yeah, I would add, Mark made a comment that's key to this conversation, and it's not to cannibalize the other properties or the other sports and entertainment venues. And the lens that we look at the Speedway is how can we collaborate and strategically bring events to town that really are cohesive with everybody else. And because at the end of the day, we could get a call, and we get these funny calls. We have a board that we write the funny stuff down on. And everybody wants to do a music festival. Insomniac and the EDC folks launched this very successful event at our place. And so we get a call every week that somebody thinks that they're in their basement and they've dreamed us up and they can come to Vegas and it's going to work. And
Sure.
And we have to temper and say, look, there's this at T-Mobile this week and there's this at the other strip properties. And we're not in the concert business. We're in the racing business. We just happen to have 1,100 acres that lends itself well to some other things that diversify our business. But I think collaboration and strategy in the long term, and having a destination focus instead of a singular venue or property focus is probably where our biggest success lies in the future, because it's not about Las Vegas Motor Speedway or about the Raiders Stadium. It's about the destination, and if we can make the boat rise, we're all going to see a benefit of that. And that's the approach we've taken, and we like to use the term good neighbor, because everybody really needs to eat at the end of the day.
Yeah. Mark?
I guess the only thing I'd add to that is we were talking backstage what's going to happen on a weekend with multiple events. And as long as there's that communication, you have the ability to, we have about a 9-month window ahead of our schedule when we start planning with the league and turning in the dates that either are available or unavailable. And we obviously have UNLV as a partner, and they'll have their dates, and then we'll be blocking out this calendar. So for us, with only the 8 regular season games and 2 preseason games, it's a little easier for us to schedule our games around some of the other major events. But when you start to talk about what that means for a weekend for somebody, right? I mean, the leisure traveler coming into Vegas is most likely right now leaving on Sunday. And now you're giving them a reason to stay on Sunday. So you're giving them another reason to be here for a third night, which obviously drives the room revenue and the tourist dollars. But now they've got something to do on Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday. And even Sunday night, if we're not the Sunday night game, you've got the Sunday night games. And you can turn all these different venues into parties for the Sunday night game as well. So you've just basically extended the Vegas experience for another 24 hours. For us, for our customer, I mean, we're going to be able to give them an incredible experience, not just the locals, but the folks that are coming in from out of town. Raider fans as well as visiting team fans, they've got Vegas for an entire weekend, culminating in a football game. So it's really going to be a massive event every single home game. I just think it's going to be spectacular.
Yeah. So all of you have worked in other cities, dealt with events in other cities. and Vegas is different, but as you look at Vegas, what do you see the differences? What do you see the advantages here? What advice would you give all of us for taking advantage of what Vegas has to offer?
I'll start.
You start.
The example I like to use is we first started coming here about 3 years ago, and we started coming every single week. We got a lot of Southwest points. But what we started to notice is we started to time how long it took from when the wheels hit the ground to when you were in your destination. And most of our meetings were either at the county building, or they were at some of the strip properties, and it was 30 minutes from wheels on the ground, right? So taxi, off the plane, in a cab, or in a car. Where does that exist anywhere, in any agency? So the infrastructure that's here, you've just done it. I mean, how many people are in town this week? I was at a dinner last night, and the restaurateur was telling me there's 5 shows here this week. Yeah. It has an impact. It doesn't take you longer to get anywhere, or at least it hasn't for me the last couple of days. I mean, the infrastructure that's here, you don't take it for granted. Don't get me wrong, you invest in it. But it's really a strength. So when you talk about all these other events and what we can bring with the stadium events, and most of them will be at night, what those can do to provide more economic activity here. I just think the infrastructure, it's certainly better than where we are right now. I can't answer for where you guys have been prior to this. And you invest in it. You can see the cranes, you can see the workers, you can see the projects that are out there. You know you have to stay ahead of it, and that's a real competitive advantage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Jim?
I would echo the infrastructure and the level of facilities that Kurt mentioned earlier. But probably the game changer in most of our discussions is the level of service in the community. We have facilities in Texas, and we have facilities in Atlanta, and we often do business with people that have done business there. And when they show up here, they notice the level of service, and that's what we're known for. You know, the quality of the entertainment, the quality of our food, you know, and the level of service. I mean, you can go to eat in other cities, and then you can come to eat here, and you can tell a dramatic difference. And I think that rings through, you know, at each one of our properties and venues, that we have to drive that same level of service or higher. And we've seen that to be a game changer as we deal with people that talk about bringing their events here. They see the responsiveness, they see the quality, not cutting corners, and it really makes a difference.
Do your customers feel like their experience in Vegas around your events is different than the experience they feel when they go elsewhere?
Absolutely, because our customer typically shows up here for about 3.5 days. In most NASCAR cities, with the exception of maybe Daytona, which is a similar destination, just not the same type of city, they're going to stay 24 hours and leave, and it'll be a drive. It won't be a 3 or 4 day, you know, excursion.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's incredible to see. You know, we've constantly been surprised at the amount of business that the city's been able to absorb, frankly. Absorb, aka turn into success. You know, we launch a new residency and we wonder, you know, as our ticket sales, as sort of music, concerts continues to grow over the last 3 to 4 years in particular, you know, we're always sort of wondering, where's the sort of breaking point, right? And so the good news is we haven't hit that, right? The challenge, of course, is that as we add the stadium and continue to kind of push ourselves, which is what we do for a living, right, to add more events, to add bigger events, how do we continue to sort of come together to get the word out, right? And that's really what it's all about. I mean, we're really we're dependent upon driving trips to sell tickets, right? And that's sort of what we think about every day. And so how do we talk to the feeders collectively, whether it's the LVCVA and Live Nation, other groups, the sports teams, et cetera, coming together to kind of get that message out. I mean, that's really what's crucial. And we've done it really well, you know, in modern history, you know, but we're going to continue to need to grow to sort of hit the targets that we wanted to hit for the city, and coming together and getting that message out is crucial.
So when you look at, I mean, you've got residents here that probably on a regular schedule, but when you look at individual events, do you try and time those with high capacity times here to provide a part of the experience? Or is it the other way around, where you're trying to fill some of the holes that we might have in our schedule?
Yeah, so It depends, right? The artist, typically we're working around an artist's schedule. That's often how it goes. But I think, and I've thought a lot about this, is I think as we talk about the stadium, I think we are going to probably look at some of the softer weekends. I mean, I think the idea that, that you can find an affordable hotel room, that things are a little bit easier. Again, we do, as Kevin mentioned, we do great on busy weekends too. I mean, EDC weekend, it's incredible, kind of how we move bodies around. We, as a city, move bodies around and do that business. But yeah, I think we are going to look at some softer weekends to drive business because, again, we know that we can get the support from the city for that. And we also, feel like a fan, especially when you're talking about stadium business where got a lot, it's a volume game, right? You really want to sort of have an affordable ticket, which means it's sort of a slightly different demographic potentially for some of those tickets, and we want them to have affordable hotels.
Yeah.
We'll be happy to have your artists for halftime shows whenever you want.
Perfect.
Build that into the package.
Wonderful. Thank you. Good. I've been working on my falsetto.
Outside of halftime shows, I think when we put the pro forma together for the stadium, we included 1 or 2 stadium concerts a year.
Yeah.
Does that seem like about the right number? Or?
Yeah, that's, I think, a doable number. And I think I was at those panels, 1 to 2. I think we feel very confident. We, as a city, it may not be all just mine. Lots of smart people out there doing music. But yeah, I don't think that's going to be an issue. Is this on record?
Yeah, I'm sorry to say
I'm
it
just
is.
kidding.
Yeah. Just kind of one final question. We did a group meeting of sports and entertainment organizations last week, and it was a remarkable lineup of teams and venues and entertainment options all together in one room, and we had logos on the wall, and there were probably 50 logos in that, and which is completely changed from just 10 or 15 years ago in the city. But you all touched on it a little bit, working together and working on timing. We've done this a little bit, and I think it has the potential to grow. I'm interested in if you think that combining events into a kind of a mega weekend or a mega week is both possible and beneficial for each of you as we think about doing that.
You're talking about doing organically? Organically it'll happen. Are you talking about doing it collectively?
Yeah, collectively and in a plan, yeah.
Yeah, and again, we have the flexibility from a scheduling standpoint to book a little later. You're booking events, probably major events, longer than we are. I think the NHL schedule comes out well before ours does, and you guys are booking events. So we'll be able to backfill into that on certain weekends. The NFL is usually pretty good about listening to teams and which weekends are either out of commission for whatever reason in a building if you have another event or something's going on in the city that you want to avoid. So we'll have some flexibility there, but yeah, I love that concept. I think that's a really
And you've been a part of that. We've done that on race weekends and UFC events and all same weekend.
Well, Mark and I were talking backstage. I mean, if we were to have a bull riding event on Thursday night and a concert on Friday night and UFC on Saturday and the big NASCAR race on Sunday afternoon and the Raiders game on Sunday night or even Monday night, you think about that. There's nothing like that. And especially in this city, in the the greatest entertainment city of the world. I mean, we stand to really, we'll fill every room and then some. So I think but the collaboration and the strategy long term of having that destination vision, I think is where we really need to think about. And I think that day at that event you were talking about, you made a comment about goal setting. And the best way for us to do that is to really put a plan in place and then measure it rigorously to make sure that we're hitting what we want to do and how we want to attack it as a community.
Kurt, anything to add to that?
No, Mark mentioned it. The organic, it happens organically today. It's incredible. If you ever take a look at a busy weekend, and you'll see how many shows are happening. All of our theaters and the arena, the arenas, most of them are booked most Saturdays, and some of that is coordinated already. So the idea that we can create and think about major events in a coordinated fashion, I'll echo what Mark said. Yes, I mean, I think that the more we spend time talking, the more you'll see that kind of thing happening, right? Especially as you continue to have sort of independent producers, operators out there with large share. The casinos sometimes are a little bit competitive, but now that you've got T-Mobile, that is sort of a neutral venue, and obviously you have Raider Stadium, you're going to see more of that, I think.
Yeah. Great. Well, I want to thank all of you not only for being here with us this morning, but ladies and gentlemen, these are three of the folks that are really making Vegas happen. They have been doing it for quite some time in a couple of cases and are making a big impact now. Stadium is still on time and on budget, right?
It is, yep.
Look at that. All right. So I knew the answer. Yeah.
An easy one to end with.
Yeah. But we very much appreciate the investment and the commitment that you make to make Las Vegas the greatest destination in the world. Thanks for being here with us this morning. Ladies and gentlemen,
thank you.
Kurt, Kevin,
Thanks,
Mark. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
See you later.
And we're going to leave you with a couple of commercials that we're running right now. One is a super trailer from our Only Vegas Moments that combines aspects of 4 spots. And then the next one that will follow is the 30-second commercial that is running nationally right now. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for being here with us again at Preview 2019.